Welcome to the Thought Balloons podcast. I am your host, Jeff Fulsham. With me today is indie comic artist, freelance artist, and Twitch creative, Eli Campbell. Streams under the name Cascadia Studio. Welcome to the show, Eli.
Hey, thanks. Good to be here.
Good to have you. Good to have you. So, like me, we're both artists. We interview a lot of artists on the show. And as I'm putting away this little chip clip before I fidget with that and make too much noise on the podcast, as we were discussing before here, let us start where everything starts, and that is the beginning. How did you get started in art? Like, what was like most people, right? Is like, oh, I got slapped some crayons in my hand when I was a kid, but like, what was the defining moment? We're going to come out real hitting hard. What was the defining moment to you that you were like, oh, I want to do this? Like, this is something like, it's not just like, oh, I'm doodling as a kid, like, what was that moment? If you have that moment, like, do you know what that moment was where it like clicked, like, oh, I'm an artist?
That's a good question. I want to say when I was in my teens and, I was like really into various media and I would do a lot of writing. Like I first started out as like a writer and I would make all these attempts at writing books, and I played on my bass guitar and I was
cool.
Very briefly in a band, and fortunately that did not work out.
Did you say fortunately or
unfortunately? Unfortunately. And so all my rock star dreams were unfortunately not there, but I did love, like, coming from a background where like I used various media, books, video games, music to kind of escape. And I thought to myself, I really enjoy these. What can I do? What can I add to this cosmos of creation here? So, so I tried the writing thing in my teens and recorded some stuff. I have like a SoundCloud account somewhere under a different name, of course. I don't have one under Cascadia Studio, my good old teenage angsty music there. And it was just like a lot of like good, like low pressure failures. And
yeah,
I think it was pretty good, my attempts back then, even though I didn't really have like a solid plan of what I was doing. I didn't know anybody else that was like super into what I want to do, except for like the few people that I knew for that band at one time.
So where in the in your journey then did you swap from more of the writing and music into the like visual arts, like painting, drawing, and like illustration and all that?
Okay, so I want to say it was halfway through college. At that point, I've written about like 8 novels or something like that. And I transferred over to the big college because I went to community college first. And there I was actually had the tools to be able to kind of learn how to do that. I did like small like jewelry making classes beforehand, but nothing like big traditional art stuff. But when I got to the big college, I had more access to more stuff because I grew up like super poor. Like I might have some crayons, but I would not have enough paper to be able to do stuff on. So by the time I got to upper division college, I finally was able to do that exploration stuff, and in between working a bunch of jobs and all that. And one of the things I did is I did digital painting just for funsies, and I had so much fun doing that. And I thought, you know, hey, if this 3D environmental modeling thing doesn't work out, well, I really love doing digital portraits of landscape portraiture. And
cool.
And I also liked watercolors, and I did that for fun too. So that's kind of like the starting point for me of this, like, I had this intense interest in 3D environmental modeling. And that's what kind of one of my superpowers in college is I learned how to do that. And then I was like, well, it would be great if I had some other portfolio work. And oh, hey, I also really enjoy this too. But I also discovered, like, I really love storytelling with the environment. Like, you know, like when you walk in and you're like in like a murder mystery, you walk in and you're like a detective and you're trying to figure out, like, interacting with various elements. Mm-hmm. How does that, you know, who done it? What happened here? Trying to piece together all kinds of stuff. And that stuff just is like super fun. You know, unfortunately, it just wasn't in the cards for me to, you know, get into games. I mean, I did a couple small stuff, but was never with 3D environmental modeling in particular.
Right.
And so I was thinking, what other medium can I do that is like not as prohibitively expensive as 3D environmental modeling? And I went and took a couple more classes, and I was thinking, oh yeah, it'd be film. And so I took a class on that, and I realized, oh, it's not cheap. It's way not cheap. Way not cheap. You can't just go around with a phone. I mean, you can technically, but like,
I mean, these days, like, those iPhone 10 cameras are not bad.
Yeah.
I mean, iPhones are still expensive as shit, though.
Right? Yeah, no, that's way out of my budget. And so I was thinking, okay, what other medium do I know that I can do? Because I've done at this point lots and lots of voice acting, lots of stage stuff. I've done like something called electronic literature. And I was still in the slush pile for a lot of my novels. I'm still like kind of like figuring out what kind of other mediums can I work in. And that's when I kind of like rediscovered my love of comics, because I used to read some comics way back in the day, like web comics and things like that. And then like, yeah, then it was like, oh, it is actually much more affordable to do comics, you know, and also, you know, I had the tools. I could teach myself. It's definitely one of those fields where it feels like you can teach yourself and you're going to be okay. And like, I wish I went to school for like illustration and I knew that, all that stuff beforehand. But unfortunately, I did 3D environmental modeling, some graphic design stuff, mostly purely digital stuff. So I had to go back and like relearn like all the art fundamentals on my own, despite having, you know, like a bachelor's degree in this multimedia stuff.
I feel called out. No, I think that's really true though, is like, I've said it many times, you know, like on my own streams. I think I've said it on this podcast before. Like, the thing that I valued most when I got my degree in illustration was there were deadlines for projects. So it like forced me to like finish things. Right. And I think by finishing things and like reviewing them, you get a lot out of like learning where you need to improve, like what your next steps are. And then along the lines of that, working with other people, both like the sort of friendly competition of like, oh, I had a really cool idea and I'm gonna try and execute my idea better than you execute your idea. Not that the ideas themselves are better, but just like I want to like make my idea as close to like what's in my head as possible, and like how successful are you in that, you know? And then
Mhm.
also the like group critique thing of like, not only like is seeing your own work and like critiquing your own work really helpful, but like doing that for like the other 10 people in your class, right? Not only like, it helps you articulate like this piece of art is interesting or good, but it's not just good or interesting, it's those things specifically because X, Y, and Z, right? Or like it
Mhm.
helps you articulate like, I don't really like this piece of art because of like the way you balance the piece, or like the, you know, that kind of stuff really helps. But other than that, like with the internet, it's so there's so many resources to like learn the technical side of things that honestly like kind of going to art school is kind of like not worth it anymore. Like I'll say it, like if you can find a good community that will like keep you honest in like your progression and even just completing things, you know, like if you, it's like trying to like lose weight or anything, right? If you have like an accountability partner, like
Mhm.
you're golden, you know, when it
Mhm.
comes to like self-teaching and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
um I
And
think
I
it's, oh
oh,
sorry,
go
go
ahead. I was gonna say it's like art school is good if you're not the type who has that kind of like the inner fire to freaking bust ass
ahead.
and sit down every day, not watch anime, not watch all kinds of stuff on the side, not play 1,000 hours of video games because it's cool and it's it's cool and it's shiny and it's new. It's putting in the time every day, knowing that if you go through the motions and you keep learning, you'll eventually get better. And I knew that because of my own experiences in college. And I had such a hard time adapting to technology because I didn't grow up with a lot of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then, because like I was like super dirt poor. So like I never had a computer in middle school or high school. I never touched a Mac until those upper division classes. And by then it was just like, years behind some of my peers here.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just thinking like, having that drive that if it, I think my professors saw that in me, that I had the kind of drive to be successful doing like freelance stuff because I
Yeah.
can push aside all the fun stuff to focus and have a plan how to action execute it. There we go.
That
But
was
for
definitely a skill I had to learn in school because I was not a self-regulated person before I went to school.
and see in school it's really great about teaching that if you're not the type of person to be that.
I think
So
it's interesting though. Like, I don't think I've spoken to anyone on the podcast that got into like the actual like drawing side of creativity later in life. And you were saying earlier how you kind of like were able to do the kind of like free exploration of media later in life. Do you have any sort of like how do I want to word this? It's like having done that later in life, is there a moment of like realization or like an aha moment of like, oh, okay. Because I don't remember that from when I was a kid, right? Like as a kid, like I was lucky that my parents worked in an office and I had access to scrap paper and pencils, right? So I was always drawing. Like I never had the, oh man, I've been missing out on this. Was there like, do you remember a moment like that for you, like where you're like, oh shit, like this is really, really cool?
Let's see. I think for me, it really kind of stems from like the things that I went through. Like maybe I was probably a little too distracted in my teens and early 20s. And then I got really, really awfully sick and I almost died. And that really kind of put things into focus about what I wanted to do in life and what I wanted to focus my energy on. And I think from there, that kind of helped give that the fire to continue to push despite all of these other obstacles in my way.
Right.
So just get cancer, almost die, you know. That's the way to do it. No, but
it reminds me of a quote from the actor DJ Qualls, who's like, I don't know if many of the listeners would know the name. He was in a movie called The New Guy back in like the early 2000s. He was recently in like a zombie based TV show. It wasn't The Walking Dead. It was a different one. I forget the name of it. Anyway, he's like this really lanky, skinny bones, like skin and bones guy. And I can remember in an interview he talked about like being like real like heavy, and they were like, how did you lose the weight? He's like, cancer's a pretty good diet. And he said it like that, and it really stuck with me, the way he was just like so just point blank about it. And I was like, oh, ooh, okay, that's heavy for my like 13-year-old brain to hear.
Yeah. So and you know, having that experience kind of like open up like more about more just in-depth personal thinky thoughts about my life, where I wanted to do after this whole experience, and who I wanted to be. Like I didn't want to be just a consumer of media. I didn't want to be just doing the office grind, you know, rat race kind of thing. I want to make stuff. I want to work at home and sure put in a lot of hours, but I wanted to build stuff of my own creations. And so
like you want like building, you know, your own legacy and things. Gotta leave like a mark.
Kind of more like I am so obsessed with making new things, it's hard for me to stop because I go crazier than I already am.
Well, I get that. I get it.
I'm not sure about legacy per se, because I mean all of our stuff's gonna burn into the sun eventually. You know, I don't have huge like mega dreams of, you know, there's gonna be statues erected of me or anything like that. No. But
I think that would probably be a sign of sociopathy if that was your goal. No, I meant more of just like because I've had like a similar sort of like not a life and death kind of realization, but like in my own journey, it's not a legacy of like, oh, I want to be remembered, but like it is sort of one of these like I like maybe reframe it in the idea of like I've heard like some friends of mine who have kids talk about like, this is how like I'm gonna pass on like myself, you know, it was like leave a little bit of me behind. I think that's like what my drive to create is like. I just want to leave a mark on the world for however long it lasts, to let people know that I was here, you know, whether or not it like they erect statues of my, that's not neither here nor there. It's just something of like, I was here and this is what I've done with my time kind of thing.
Yeah, I can see that.
And then, you know, you get to a point in your life, no matter how you end up there, of, oh, there's not as much time here than I thought I had. And at that moment, you just can't stop creating things. Like you just can't stop doing that thing that you're meant to do, you know?
And like when I was in college, I had a humongous hard time, like really like being really narrow focused with like my quote unquote superpowers. So I did a lot of different things, and like I found like that's kind of like its own superpower in itself, knowing how to do lots of little things together that work in a machine when it comes to like multimedia creation stuff. But like I'm really glad that I did that. It was a little bit more generalist than some of my other peers who were like really laser focused, put all their eggs in one basket. But like, I'm trying to think. I
think it's interesting because we hear the phrase a jack of all trades but master of none as some kind of bad thing. Like, oh, you should be more focused and really nail down this one thing. But I honestly see a lot of value in being a generalist. I think being a generalist, like, honestly can prepare you for things like being a team leader of a creative project. Like if you know the basics of a lot of different stuff, you're going to be more able then to turn around and guide people who are maybe more technically proficient but lack vision, you know?
Right. Yeah. Also, there is a second part of Jack of all trades, which I don't think a lot of people know about it, but it goes, a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. So, you know, just to add onto the pile of, you know, I agree with you. So,
yeah, I've never actually heard that second half of that. I like that. That's cool. Yeah. I kind of feel the same way, you know. And I think it's cool, like, especially like when it comes to comics and stuff, right? Like going to film school, being a writer, you know, going like doing design, like environment design, you know, like especially with like the 3D modeling stuff. I've had ideas for, you know, like if I had a recurring set, like say I wanted to do a detective story, right? Like the police station would be something that I'd have to draw over and over and over again. And I've thought like, man, it would be really cool if I knew how to do 3D modeling. I could just make the police station and then take screen caps of it at whatever angle I need it to be at to get the reference instead of having to invent everything all the time. So like it's for comics especially, you know, like what we do, being the jack of all trades is really beneficial.
Right? Yeah, because you have to learn how to draw all the things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like any way that you can make the creation of the thing easier, like just makes the whole process faster and better.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like both of us having, you know, studied film, like we know instinctually how to turn words into images by a script, right? Like having to do like storyboarding, like stuff like that. And
Yeah.
like we'll know the like what does it mean emotionally to have a high angle looking down at someone versus a low angle looking up at someone, or a close up versus a long shot, and like all this other stuff. Like that, like those film techniques is exactly what you need for comics too. So
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I really loved when I was transitioning to doing comics, like how much of that terminology is exactly the same for comics. Found that super helpful.
yeah, yeah. It really is. Like a lot of the language, like the technical language of those two mediums is exactly the same. Yeah. But speaking of comic books, here's a question that I don't think I ask too often, but why? Why comics? There's a lot of visual storytelling media out there that you can do. Um, like you could write picture books that aren't comics, right? Like children's books. You could do like visual novels, like audio visual things where like you just have like a still image and like narrating things. What drove you into comic books over like other multimedia like storytelling things?
Like visual novels, they take like a team, basically a team, to pull it off in a amount of time. But also like for comics, like I feel like there's more of an avenue for like creator only, like someone who sits down and does everything from script to finished lettering
Okay.
and all that. And I think it's also partially because I fell into like the illustrated community and they're like comics, comics, comics. And I was slightly influenced by that.
Yeah,
Like
no, I
some of
think
the
that works.
costs, some of the costs was just it's just cheaper to do that
True.
than trying to do everything for visual novels, for picture like books and like children's books and that kinds of things. um, Finding a publisher, seeing if they're willing to accept the work. Sometimes, I mean, I guess sometimes there are people who do both the writing and the illustration, but those tend to be separate jobs.
Like tend to be separate jobs in comics too.
Yeah, yeah. Unless you're an indie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, unless you're like an indie who can pay people to help out. But
Yeah, or if you like strike a deal of like, hey, none of us are getting paid on the front end, we're gonna kickstart this and hope we get paid.
right, yeah, but at least that option exists, right? Like
Right.
the internet has definitely helped with launching a lot of like cool indie stuff that just I'm always just so thankful that the internet exists.
Me
Every
too.
day, every day I'm so thankful.
Even for things, and I know this is like a tangent, we don't have to go down this road too far, but like just appreciation for the internet and all like the terrible things that go on there. But like just a simple thing of like being able to order groceries online and then go pick them up or have them delivered, like just little simple things like that. The internet is awesome.
Yeah, yeah,
I can't spend 12 days drawing like 12 hours a day at the boards drawing comics and get my grocery shopping done and cook a healthy meal. Like you gotta cut out something somewhere, and the internet
right,
has made life so much more efficient. Maybe a little
yeah,
bit more stressful and chaotic because you have more time to focus on more things, but I don't know, I like it. I agree, internet is cool.
yeah. Especially like creating your own like community or being around certain communities that help bolster your own creativity. And like the whole reason why I started Twitch is because I was so lonely. I went from in college working in like student government and then being in like various teams on doing digital media stuff to working by myself, and it was so lonely. So I started streaming and I found other people who had like similar goals to mine, And it's been, just really great having kind of like, despite it not being like technically in-house, like creative departments and like colleagues to talk to each other, bounce ideas off, but at least you can have a studio buddy to just have on. So you're just less lonely, and I think maybe that's how I found you. I just saw you on Twitch art, and I can't remember exactly how
I think you found my stream through Illustrati. Because I've been in there for ever since I started streaming.
I think maybe Dozy might have rated you.
Or that. No.
Might be one of those two. I don't know. It's been what? A long time.
Yeah, over a year now.
Yeah.
It seems like forever. I want to say it was Illustrati though, because I always post when I'm going live in that Discord. And I'm almost sure that I haven't known Dozy as long as I've known you.
Okay.
But maybe I have. I don't know. Again, especially with COVID year, what is time? I don't know anymore.
Right? Exactly. You expect me to remember things?
Yeah, you expect
have you met me?
The order in which things have happened? It's now May, and I've only in the last month I've left my house like 4 times since the beginning of December. Like, I don't go anywhere. I use artificial light. Every day is the same to me. I don't know what's going.
Oh man, but like that first year was just, I was working in that garage. Whew, I'm so glad I'm out of that garage now. But yeah, I was in that similar. I was only working in artificial light, dealing with the elements.
Regulation in there.
Yeah,
get out of the garage.
Oh gosh, it was so awful.
My walls have insulation now.
Right? Yeah, and I actually can look outside, and there's a window, and there's trees, and there's a dog here, and it's 1,000% better than burning myself. The heater. But yeah. Anyways, the internet is awesome. It's really great to have a whole like crew of people that you can talk to and bounce ideas off. It's like, hey, is this a good thing? Am I doing this okay? Is this pose fine? And not feel like, like it's an awful thing to bug someone, Yeah,
and that's exactly what it, is what I valued from school, is that exact thing, is like being able to have those like-minded people who know the same things that you do, or not the same thing, like you know what I mean, like they know of the same subjects, right? Like we talk about, like, being lonely, finding friends with common interests and things. It's not something that I'm proud of. In fact, I'm quite deeply saddened by this, but like 2 people who I've had on the podcast, Johnny C. Downloads and Nick Stapleton, 2 dudes I used to play D&D with a lot, but outside of D&D, we don't really share many interests. Like Nick and I share a commonality in that, like, I was raised around like biology and medicine and stuff, and he's a nurse. But like Johnny and I, like, we're not really, like, he's really into video games. I'm not so much into video games anymore. We both overlap in comics, but he's not an artist. I am an artist, so we come at it from a different angle. And unfortunately, when we stopped playing D&D together and I started streaming, we sort of like drifted apart, because like we weren't gaming together anymore. And that group as a whole, like, can't relate to me on the art level that like other artists can. And it wasn't something where it was like, all right guys, see you in like 2 years, like when we're going to play D&D again after like people are done with school and like jobs and stuff, because lots of things got messed up, just because life happens, right? but
Right.
like it wasn't like a all right, see ya kind of thing. It was just a slow kind of, I don't, have many commonalities to talk with my friends about stuff because I'm so consumed with art, right? Like, so yeah, finding communities are very important.
Yeah.
I do
Yeah.
want to ask though, do you consider yourself an extrovert? I find it interesting that you say you started streaming because you were lonely. I don't find myself wanting to stream for the social aspect. And I'm wondering if that is an extrovert introvert kind of thing or not.
I would consider myself an introvert. I really do not enjoy big parties. I actually have some like hearing damage, so like being in a crowded restaurant, not fun. Being
Mm-hmm.
at a bar, not very fun to me. But I like the idea of streaming because it's kind of like a one. I mean, like 1-to-1 or 1 to like 4 people, and it's like, you know, I don't know how do I just describe it. It's like an introvert's way of being able to have like a really low stakes conversation around
Okay.
whatever.
I got you.
And
Yeah.
you don't necessarily need to have your camera on. You can just
Right.
be yourself, and that's the kind of the thing. Like, it's
Cool.
streaming is just you be yourself, and um
And if
which is,
people
I
don't
think,
like it, they can screw off.
yeah. And also, like, I like really loved like being on stage, and it's weird. Like, I'm like super introverted. I'm best 1-on-1 or 2-on-1. But if I go into that small group setting, or like, coffee hour or something like that, it's like the worst. But get me in front of on stage, I'm like really good there too. Just
I
from my
agree with that 100%. I was the same way. Like, we were both musicians and in groups. I like, I have said that. In fact, like, there's a line in the web comic that I draw. It was somewhere between episodes 30 and 40. I forget. It was the where Aziza is like pining for a girl that she likes, and Fonkin's helping her like ask the girl out. And she
Mhm.
talks about like being a bard, and like I could get on stage and I can wow a crowd, but put me, face to face with a girl who I think is cute, and I'll like stick my foot in my mouth every time, or like something like that. And that is
Mhm.
exactly how I was. Like, that line is exactly how I feel. Like, put me in front of a crowd, cool. Put me in front of someone I find cute, and I'll be like, can't, nope,
Right.
no, can't do it. Just can't do it. And I think it's that, I think the stage provides that barrier that helps an introvert feel like comfortable, right? Like, there's this distance. Like, I am up here and I am performing for your entertainment, right? And this is a prepared thing that I have practiced versus
Mhm.
oh no, now I have to come up with things off the top of my head, and this is more me than what my prepared self is, and now you're going to judge me. Like, those are the fears that I have when I am like stuck in a like position of like, oh, you have to actually interact with people on a personal basis now. That's where my insecurities lie. So I totally
Mhm.
get the whole like being comfortable performing rather
Mhm.
than like face to face with people, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I've always been more comfortable like doing the presentations. They're like, oh, do you want to go up and do your presentation? I'm like, I'd rather just go up there and do it first, get it out of the way, because
Mm-hmm.
I will get that anxiety, and it will just build and build and build. Um, and that will happen when I'm doing like small group discussions, like going to a convention. Unless I'm talking just 1-on-1 with someone, if I'm talking with a group of people, that's just like worst thing for me. So just because of that anxiety of like, oh, I don't want to overstep someone talking to me, you know, but they're talking, and like, what if I don't have the things to say that is good, like good enough, quote unquote good enough, but like intriguing enough to the conversation? What if I'm just, you know, I get very, very quiet.
Yeah.
So
that the going to conventions, especially like if you're gonna have a table, like it's tough. Like you need to, like, especially in the beginning, I find like you really got to be okay with rejection, and not rejection, but just pure apathy to what you do. Like I tried so desperately at my first convention to get people to stop and look at my art, you know, as they were like kind of slowly moseying by, where they'd glance at my table. I'd be like, hey, hi, how are you? Can I, like, you know, tell you about my comic? And they just keep walking. They wouldn't even say anything. They wouldn't even say no. They wouldn't even nod their, they just keep walking, not even acknowledge
brutal.
you. Like, yeah, just like
Brutal.
Like you're a statue that didn't even say anything to me. Just, it's like, yeah, it is. Oof, it is hard, but you know, after a couple of shows, you kind of get that shell, right? Like, all right, some people are just not gonna pay attention. Even when you have free things to give them, they're just not gonna pay attention.
Yeah.
But speaking of free things, let's go to a break here real quick and try and sell people things.
Oh yeah.
And we will be back with more of Cascadia Studio right after this. If you like this podcast and would like to support the show, head over to patreon.com/Folsham_art. With as little as $1 per month, you not only support Thought Balloons and get to submit questions to be answered by myself and the guest host, but you will also have access to my webcomic 3 to 4 weeks before they're released to the public and my weekly update blog. At higher tiers, you'll gain access to full issues and short story comics, and you can even see progress and add input to projects I'm working on. That's patreon.com/FOULSHAM_ART to support Thought Balloons today. Do you want to class up your gaming? Are you sick of card tables and cheap plastic sleeves for your character sheets? Do you like real wood and are convinced magnets are the only magic we have left in our current age of science? Then head over to legendcraft.ca to spruce up your tabletop gaming setup. They offer felt top gaming tables with add-ons like cup holders, tablet holders, dice trays, roll boxes, and more. Newly released in January 2021 is their Magna Tracker system. With versions for both health and spell tracking, these sleek and stylish tracking boards come with magnetized tracking pips that allow you to slide them back and forth along clean-cut channels, making tracking your health and spell slots easy to use and read, all without the constant erasing and writing on your character sheet. And did I mention that both the Magna Trackers and the tables are customizable and personalizable? That's right. Your table and or Magna Tracker will be one of a kind when you order at Legendcraft. Legendcraft is partnering with me to offer you a 5% discount on your orders at legendcraft.ca. That's right, you can get a 5% discount when you enter the code F_ART at checkout. That's F_art. Go to legendcraft.ca. That's legendcraft.ca with discount code F_art for 5% off. Legendcraft.ca. Order today. Welcome back from the break, everybody. Hope you all listened to those ads and enjoyed them. We are back talking to Eli Campbell, Cascadia Studio on the Twitch and the internet. Welcome back to the show, Eli.
Hey, buy all the things.
Yeah, buy all the things. Subscribe to the Patreon.
Yeah, with the Patreon. Jeff's Patreon, my Patreon.
Yeah, all the Patreons. uh Before the break, we were talking about writing and like getting into comics and stuff. As someone who started out as a writer and is in a storytelling medium such as comic books, what are some of the like major themes that you either like to write about and tell stories about, or that you just see cropping up in your work just naturally?
Really great question. Let's see here. For like books, novels, I did a lot of like urban fantasy, a lot of creepy crawly things in the dark, and I still find myself gravitating towards that. Like I did one comic. It was basically like a space version of this alien on this ship, and it was basically like Alien the movie, but like my own like monster creation. Um and like I realize now, like at the end of this uh next project, this other 6-pager, I'm doing like a different kind of scenario, but with like fantasy. And also like now that I have like more skill sets, I can rely more heavily into my other stuff with the writing. Like I did a lot of like I really like making stories about like everyday people who are through various means have to step up to do something to save the day, and usually these people are or in some forms LGBTQA, and that's pretty important to me, having that kind of aspect.
Okay.
But also like making sure that in my body of work that I try to include peoples of various ethnicities and like sizes too. That's pretty important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And but like specifically in the writing, like I feel like especially in college, maybe I was perhaps too pigeonholed into the whole, you know, I think it's like kind of like how this expectation from like people who are allies that people from marginalized communities are forced to make like media things about themselves or about their lived experience. And sometimes I just want to make a quick story about saving the day, chopping a demon in half, or a dragon, or spacing an alien. Sometimes they are LGBTQA, and that not making it like a big huge deal. But there's always that kind of like that external pressure about making like like things that are like pretty popular, those journal diary comics about your own lived experience. And how maybe there's probably more attention on that if you're LGBTQA or have some other non I'm forgetting the term right now.
Non-binary.
Like if you're non-binary or on the LGBTQA spectrum.
You say you brought up you've done 2 stories with a sort of like alien, like the movie, like kind of general plot line, or inspired by, we'll say. So I've noticed like some themes like in of horror in general, but from Alien specifically, like that is a story about a group of people trapped on a spaceship being hunted by a monster. Is there something maybe within that frame that you feel maybe this is something you haven't ever considered before, but it's something that kind of cropped up in my mind. Is there like something intriguing to you, maybe like on a visceral level of like an apex predator such as the humans becoming the hunted? Like that seems like a pretty existentially horrifying concept to me that I could see being really fun exploring, like the fear of being hunted.
Right, yeah. I mean, I think when you really kind of break down the stuff, it's some of my author stuff kind of revolves around like me dealing with and managing my own like mental illness stuff, and how does that really kind of play out? Because when you're like an everyday person and then suddenly you're forced into this situation where you have to adapt, you have to overcome, there is no choice. You don't have a choice in the matter. I feel like I think there's still a lot of really cool things you can do, whether it's within an urban fantasy or like a sci-fi horror or fantasy types of horror stuff. I just also I'm really like kind of a scaredy cat with horror, and it really affects me, and I kind of like love it and hate it at the same time.
Sure, yeah.
Love watching horror games, have a hard time playing horror games.
It's fair. Me too. I don't have any problem watching horror movies or anything. In fact, I think they're kind of funny and silly because there's like that detachment. I bought Phasmophobia when it was like really popular, and I had to do like the training thing by myself, right? And when I got into the training house and I saw like a cup, like a glass on the table move like 2 inches, I force quit the game. I didn't even like go to the van and like leave, nor I just nope, alt tab click, nope, can't do this, too scary, can't do it. And then I only played it like actually played it like the other day because it was Awesome Age from a former guest on the show. It was her birthday, and that's what she wanted to do. She wanted to play Phasmophobia with everybody, and I was like, oh god, okay, I'll do this. And I think now that I've actually experienced it, I could play that. But holy crap, playing it's so hard playing horror games.
Right.
I also think though, as far as like storytelling, I think honestly horror and sci-fi is like a real solid place to do stories. You'll never run out of things to say in those genres because those genres inherently are a reflection of our current times. Like if you look back at sci-fi and horror in general, like especially through the lens of like film school stuff, like what are they except for like allegories or embodiments of like whatever that period of time's turmoil is, like zombies, for example, being like the loss of autonomy, right? And depending on when you are in time, that loss of autonomy can mean different things, right? Like right now, we're sort of losing autonomy in that like social media is like taking over everything. We're all looking at our phones. We seem to be controlled by technology. And so now the modern allegory of the zombie is like people who just go through the motions in life and are controlled by the algorithm, right? So like we take that and say, oh, it's a zombie virus, right? And so you frame that kind of mindset of people controlled by the algorithm in air quotes and just be like, oh no, this is like a zombie survival thing that we're all involved in real life. So yeah, I mean that's one of the reasons why I like fantasy and sci-fi as well, is like I can talk about the issues that matter to me, but in a way that doesn't seem heavy-handed, you know?
Right, yeah. Exactly.
But like I also noticed themes of like the underdog in the things that you were mentioning as well. I think that's another strong theme for people to like relate to. Like we all want to root for the underdog. I think we all view ourselves as the underdogs of our own story, right?
Right, yes.
And I think especially when it comes to like our current uh, culture that we live in, um, like the LGBTQIA, sorry, um, umbrella of like that, like we're seeing a upsurge in fighting for equal representation, where we're seeing equality, and even beyond that, just like normal human decency and dignity towards each other, right? Like as like
Mm.
a basis for the movement. What bigger underdog? Like there isn't one, in my opinion, at the current moment in time. The this is something, just speaking as like an ally, like I feel it's very important for representation in those things. I don't know if I've said it on the podcast, but I think I've mentioned to you, just in hanging out and stuff. Something that woke me up to that, as a cishet white guy who never really was concerned about that stuff, or didn't even realize that it was an issue, was back in 2016, the Hillary versus Trump thing. I had a friend saying like, I'm voting for Hillary not because I hate Trump, not because I like Hillary, but because I want my daughter to grow up in a world where she knows it's possible for her to become president. And that like was like an aha moment for me, where I was like, oh, growing up as a white guy, and just it was like, to me it was just like, oh, the rules are 35 and a citizen, right? And anybody can be president. And it never clicked in my head that actually seeing oneself reflected in a position really solidifies that. And ever since then, I've like tried to educate myself on these things, and I've been like a huge vocal supporter as much as I can. Obviously it's not really my place to like preach about those things, but in private conversations, if it comes up, I'm like very supportive of this stuff, because it is very important to see yourself represented in media and all over, right?
Right, yeah. And like, especially when you don't see that reflected in media, especially when you're like young, and that is a really isolating experience, I think. Like, I mean, we lost an entire generation to the AIDS crisis, so we already don't have people to look up to, because they've been incredibly devastated by
Right.
this disease that a lot of people didn't care about. So now we're seeing such a huge, kind of rush in our like generation to create this media to fill that void where there was no representation, unless the very few times there were representation, it was the butt of the joke. It was
Mm-hmm.
the side character that's the best friend. It was really those stereotypes, the
Right.
the hooker, those like horrible stereotypes. And now seeing people being able to make this content, and in various mediums. I'm not just talking comics, like all mediums.
Yeah.
Like really cool stuff like Shira, and the Princess of Power. That is a really good representation of media these days. That is, it's catered for like the entire audience, but also for like younger people, to know that there are like good representations within media, and it's not just stereotypes and whatnot, and made by people who are, you know, part of that umbrella. So
Yeah.
And I think it's just, you know, the more cool stories there are, the better. There is like the danger of a single story and how that relies heavily into stereotypes. And you know, the more the better. The more variety, the better. But good on you for doing that ally work and telling and, you know, sharing and talking, hopefully getting more allies into the fold.
Yeah, it's one of these, like, the easy example to go to is anytime it comes up with like relatives, you know, my parents or whatever, like I always have the conversation no matter what, like just hoping one day the things that I say will make sense and it will click. You know, a lot of people get exhausted, you know, doing the constant reiterating their position, and eventually people tire out and are just like, whatever, screw it. They're just never gonna get it. But like, I feel like there are a few things in life, and like LGBT issues, in my opinion, are one of those things where it's difficult and it's hard and it's exhausting, but you just have to you have to stay the course. Like, you just got to keep trying to show the people the error of their logic until they see the light, you know. And it's not easy for sure, especially from someone from the outside, right? Like, I think a lot of the issue for me specifically, you know, not debating, but like discussing these things or trying to educate my dad on these subjects is like, I wonder if there's like a little bit of something in him where he's like, well, you're not part of the community. Like, what makes you an authority? And that's exactly it, right? It's like, I'm not an authority. I'm just trying to reframe the things that my friends have said to me that I understand. And it doesn't seem to be working, but I'm trying.
Well, also, like, allies talking to like their peers are more likely to get to have more allies. It's harder for someone in a marginalized community to speak to make more allies. It's just kind of the thing. Like, there's an entire book I recommend. It's about like it's called White Like Me by Tim, I can't remember the last name, that talks about, you know, this white guy and talking about his experiences about talking to like racists and, you know, racism, but, you know, slightly different topic, but kind of like talking about marginalization and trying to have more allies into the fold, which will, you know, help with the, you know, the dangers of a single story and kind of the further, you know, development of those stereotypes that affect the greater society. Because like the things we do make, even if it's small indie stuff, even if, you know, only 5 people read it or watch it or whatever, it's still going to impact them in some way. And so understanding the things that we make and how that impacts and, you know, stereotypes and all that. I think I'm coming across with my points. I'm getting a little fuzzy here. Yeah. Okay. All right.
So to kind of rebound off of that, I remember you mentioned earlier about you know, showing them as a main character, he was a well-rounded person. What are your opinion on creating those characters? Like my own personal motto, whatever, my method of creating characters is, all right, what's their goal, or like what's their function in the story, like narratively? Like, do they need to like for like, if they're the main character, like what's their drive emotionally, you know, like what do they need that way? And then it's like, okay, what are they interested in? What's their personality? You know, all this other stuff. You know, are they a bubbly person and all that? Like I put that stuff first, and then I like fit everything else in later. And one of the last things that I do after, you know, all that is like, okay, are they a boy or a girl or non-binary or whatever? Like, how do they identify? Like, what's their skin color? What's their religion? You know, what's all that? Like, all that stuff I put at the end after figuring out, like, you know, the other aspects of the character. And then those things obviously kind of like, you know, inform or change a little bit because those are big parts of who we are as people. But I try not to lead with that foot for fear of, oh, you know, this is in air quotes, this is the gay guy, right? And then you fall into those stereotype traps, right? So I try, like, I don't know, do you have like an opinion on like, should that be first or not? Or is it like character to character or?
Um, hmm. You know, I think that's a pretty healthy way to approach story making, is, you know, waiting closer to the end, but also thinking about, you know, especially thinking about like gender and sexualities, is understanding how much will that affect like their current culture, and if they're kind of a part of that community or not, because not all LGBTQ people are like super into the community. Some people are like really turned off by that, and how does that affect them? You know, kind of digging at those, some of those deeper questions to kind of further, you know, oh, are they, you know, LGBTQA? You know, just kind of further developing that character, and how, you know, if your particular world had, you know, an AIDS crisis, and, you know, if it's, you know, happened 30 years ago, how does that affect the culture then, compared to where there was no kind of, you know, like a sci-fi egalitarian kind of society where there has been no problems with that, like ever. Let's see here, I'm trying to think. I mean, I have just one voice.
No, yeah. This is just your opinion. I don't expect, and I hope the audience doesn't expect that like you are a spokesperson for an entire group of people. Like, I'm just asking you like your own opinion, you know, on these things. Like, maybe a better way to like to frame that question is, you know, I have my own method of like creating characters, and then, you know, assigning representation value to like make very cold, like, you know, technical jargon out of it, right? Like, what, like, do you have like a method that you go to, or is it more organic than my process? You know, I typically am a very when it comes to creating, I'm a very organized, like, mechanical creator. So
sometimes I'm a little bit more organic. Sometimes I actually will usually know the setting before I know the characters, and the characters kind of come later on. Like, some stories that I make, sometimes I'll get through like the entire book and I don't know their name, or, you know, it's just kind of, I think it kind of goes back to like my interest in like environment and setting, and then like chunking away at it slowly but surely until I form characters. And sometimes, usually, I roll some dice to figure out, you know, as I'm kind of getting their personalities together, just to like keep it interesting and, you know, not fall into various stereotypes. I'll roll some dice when it comes to like, you know, are they part of the LGBTQA? You know, what's their gender identity? You know, what kind of, that kind of thing. Like, there's like tables I can look at, and cool. You know, like, Yeah, so it's like sometimes the environment helps shape who these potential characters in this story will end up.
I dig that. Yeah, I didn't even think of using like random tables or rolling dice for those aspects. Like for the fantasy stories that I've done, there are some characters, like say the Osrin Tales, for example, like Fonkin and Milos. I've actually played those two characters in D&D games, so I have like character sheets. And there will be times when I don't really know what to do in like say a combat scene or something. And I'll actually roll dice. I'll just play myself, like do like a D&D combat thing, right? And then try and see like does that inspire some story stuff. It's interesting to like to try and think of that as like part of character generation as well. Very cool, I think. Sorry, I'm starting like in my head I'm like actually thinking about like how would that like how would I apply this, and now I need to get in, I gotta stay in interview mode.
So many thinky thoughts. Oh no.
Right, especially because right now like I'm in the thick of like actually writing the 4-book 10 issues per book graphic novel that is the Oscar. So now I'm like in writer mode too, so like it's just like,
right.
oh yes, writing tip, yes, it must assimilate. absorb all knowledge.
All of it all at once.
But yeah, I think that's cool. It's one of these things of like I like to put it all that kind of stuff on the back end, only because that I say this, and I want to preface this by saying I think as far as all comics is concerned, that Kamala Khan is a really good character. I want to say I really enjoy the Miss Marvel stuff, and I'm not even a fan of Marvel comics. Okay, regular listeners of this show will know I'm a DC fanboy. Don't hate Marvel by any means, but I don't really read Marvel. I do really like Kamala Khan. I think she's a pretty well-rounded character. That said, when I was reading the first 2 volumes of Miss Marvel, they kept saying she's a Pakistani American living in New Jersey. She's a high school student, and she's a nerd, who's like into video games and superheroes. They kept saying that, but only really gave like 1 or 2 examples. She really into Captain Marvel, and she kind of fangirled about meeting Wolverine, but really didn't talk much about like being into superheroes. And then she had like a few scenes with like her like religious leader. I don't remember if it was specific. I don't remember the term, so I'm not gonna like mislabel anything, right? But like she like went to like her like religious like leader and like talked to them in a few scenes, which I thought was really cool, to show like the Muslim side of things, right? But something weird to me, like it felt weird in the core of like, I'm a nerd. I'm a nerd. They keep saying that I'm a nerd, but they didn't really show any of that. And so that book is why I very much want to come from all my characters, want to come from a place of like, who are they as like a core of a person? And then I want to show that. And then everything else is just ancillary, right? Like, there are definitely people out there whose identities are very strongly tied to something like their religion or their gender identity or something. But I know for me personally, being a straight guy means absolutely nothing to who I am, right? Like I like D&D, I like storytelling, and I have reasons for all that stuff that I'm not going to reiterate here. If you want to know why I'm into that stuff, go listen to episode 1. But none of it has to do with my religion or sexuality or gender or anything like that. And so I try and make characters where they have just an essence of actually feeling true, because I felt some slight level that they were just kind of saying things about the character without actually showing it in the Kamala Khan for like the first 2 volumes. I haven't read past that, busy boy, but yeah, that's sort of like where my impetus for that comes from, is I just want to show people as being people in my books, right? Regardless of anything else. I think the rest of it's just flavor, especially when you're talking about like superhero books or fantasy adventure books, when what you really want to see is people using magic or superpowers and fighting monsters, right? Like, instead of just browbeating a concept of like, I'm a nerd, by saying I'm a nerd over and over, like, just show us a couple of scenes, right? Anyway, I feel like I'm ranting.
Just slightly.
But it's again something I feel very passionate about. But and I think it's a good thing to talk about. But but yeah, there's oh fuck, blanked on my brain. I was gonna ask, what inspires your vision to like for your art and like your stories and things?
I mean, besides the sum of my experiences, a lot of my stuff, besides like the sci-fi stuff, a lot of that stuff seems to be pretty centered within like the Pacific Northwest. I like telling stories about our region in various points of time. I really enjoy that. And yeah, I feel like I'm like influenced by so many things in life. Like it's like, okay, now you're a fish and you're in some water. Now explain the water. And I'm like, well,
that's fair. Some of some of the directions of this podcast of talking to passionate people about their passions and why they're passionate. A lot, not everyone is always like keenly aware of the why, right? It took me, a long time talking to people about art, via streams and stuff to like understand the whys of my own, creativity. That's totally fine. It's just something I wanted to throw out there.
Also, like, I'm just thinking of more on why, like, what can I do as a creator of media, comic books or otherwise? What can I do to make the world suck a little less? That's kind of it. Through like entertainment or otherwise. Sometimes in my streams I'll do like lots of fundraiser stuff. I really love doing that, and I feel like doing the streaming thing is just a bonus. That's kind of part of that why is how do I make the world slightly less sucky.
I dig it. I think that's good. We really need that in life. I would say, especially now, but I think in every situation, like, entertainment is so vastly important to the human condition. Like, it's almost difficult. No, it's not almost. It is difficult for me to even like elucidate my point, because it's just, I feel like art is so integral to the human condition. It's very difficult to explain how it enriches the soul sometimes.
Yeah.
But switching gears, because that is a topic that like I literally, like I said, cannot put into words in this particular moment.
Yeah, we getting deep here.
I was gonna ask, you've done many like anthologies and a lot of short stories and comics. What are your like current plans like for the rest of 2021? Is more short stories? Are you looking to do longer form comics like full issues or even like whole graphic novels or anything coming up?
That's a great question. I've got a couple of ideas kind of floating around. One thing that I want to do is I was just talking to some friends just earlier today, and they're wanting to run like a Kickstarter, and I would do some art for it. It's basically making like an affordable option alternative to like minis, so like cardboard like minis basically that you have on little stands. I think that'd be pretty cool and more affordable than buying all the minis and painting them and all, et cetera, et cetera. So there's that idea for projects. I still have a comic I would like to release on Webtoons. That's a comic that I am adapting from a novel I wrote in 2015. Cool. And yes, I got that in the works too. I'm actually delaying one of my my first issue of my comic until like next year. That's the Serious Project. Not official name yet, just the idea of that. And I was thinking about kickstarting that, but that's a whole like huge process to do a Kickstarter. But yeah, it's just easier to start on Webtoons and do that one first for a little while and then transition to seeing if I, because I have pretty much the entire first issue of that written and done.
Cool.
And let's see, other projects, conventions and merchandise stuff. And I would love to do more children's book stuff, illustrations. That takes a lot of time. There's, I have another comic project I am collaborating with someone else. And that's actually happening later this month. Hopefully that'll get into in the anthologies. It's a lot of, we'll work together. We get through this and then we submit it and then we'll see if we get in.
What's that project about? Since that seems to be like the most immediate next
The most immediate thing. It is.
I mean, if you can say, I don't know if you just like no NDAs or anything.
No, it's just like a 4-pager, and it's for an anthology. I'm doing it with a friend who showed it to me. It's like from like Platform Comics is the one.
I've not heard of
Platform. It's called the 10K Challenge, and it's you have 10,000 minutes to create a comic, and the comic must be between 4 to 8 pages long, and will be assigned a unique theme to each team, and will have the same line of dialogue that must be used in their comic. So because of that, enrollment is open, and so because of that, we can't really prepare too much in advance because you only got a week to do it. So I think it's a pretty fun challenge, especially since we're gonna have, I think, like potentially 2 to 3 people for this team, and we're just gonna probably shoot for the 4 mark. And it's I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be a challenge. I just getting more work made, I think, is just gonna help me. I feel like I spent probably a little too long on this last comic and building the skills, because I'm still like building skills. I would love to be at this point like next year ready and to do the Kickstarter, do the full issue. And I know it's like the more short-term projects I get through the other side, the better prepared I'm going to be for the long haul, for the whole issue.
Have you talked to like anybody about running the Kickstarter? I know Ethan Brewerton, who talked to him on the podcast, and we both know him from Illustrati. When he did his recent Kickstarter, he actually had like a Kickstarter manager person who got paid if the campaign got like funded, and it was someone who like does that, right? They manage Kickstarters and know how to like properly set it up and like help you like work through it. So I don't know, it was like, that's what I'm gonna do when I'm ready to like do my first Kickstarters. I'm gonna be like, hey Ethan, can you hook me up with that person that helped you run your Kickstarter, because I don't know anything about it and it's all seems very confusing and scary to me.
I mean, I got time to study. I kind of think I might want to try to do it on my own first. So I was thinking of like a PDF only. I don't know if I'm going to be doing at this point like a published, like, going to a printer and getting it and then sending it all out. Like, I know of various people I could potentially talk to, but I'm still in that huge research phase, which is why I've delayed it. Like, I would have to be running hard right now to be able to be ready for fall. And no, I think it'd be better if I waited till next year.
I'm waiting to run any of my Kickstarters until the product is finished and ready to be printed and actually given to people. That is the one thing I actually do know about Kickstarters, is that there is a huge problem with people getting funded but then not delivering the product either at all or like takes them forever. And like, along with that, the little tidbit that's stuck in my brain, which is why I remember that, is the people who are chronically successful at doing Kickstarters are the people who are prepared to deliver really, really quickly after being funded. So like, I'm not even in the research phase for Kickstarters yet, because I'm not even drawing stuff for months, like, I want to be able to, hey, we're funded, we're shipping in 2 weeks.
Right. Yeah, no, it's such an intriguing platform and so many ins and outs to know about it. But I feel like knowing all the information helps prepare for people who are Kickstarter managers, to make sure that they're on the good side. Because I worry about like being taken advantage of, because that's happened a lot, being a marginalized creator, working for exposure. You know how that goes.
Yeah, I'm done with that. I would rather die in obscurity than starve to death in infamy.
Right. By the way, we have Patreons.
We do have Patreons.
Jeff, you have a patron by the name of Eli. Eli Campbell, aka Cascadia Studio.
That is true. You are one of my patrons.
Yes. Yes. And I also have a Patreon, and it is very affordable and directly helps me.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Patreon.com/Cascadia Studio, right?
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Links are in the description below.
Yes.
We will make sure to reiterate that here at the end of the podcast. You can tell everybody all about like the tiers and all that stuff. But hey, guys, while you're listening to the rest of the podcast, just go check it out now and sign up at whatever the top tier is. What is the top tier, by the way? Like what, $20, $40? You know what? Sign up for a custom amount. Support Eli at $100 a month. You won't regret it.
Man, I would die. I would die. I would die. You have no idea like how life-changing that would be for me. So, don't even judge. Oh boy.
See, look, if you can't do 100, at least do 5. How about that? See, look, how much more affordable that is, audience. Just 5. It's not 100. You could do 5. You do $5 a month, audience.
Yeah.
Patreon.com/Cascadia Studios.
Thank you.
But speaking of getting to the self-promotion part of the podcast, at the end of the shows, you have submitted so many questions for us. We've used them over the last few episodes. This week, we're going to use a question from somebody else. This one comes from Brandon, and which is, why is Mr. Abstracto your favorite artist? No, I kid. He did actually submit that one to me, but he's also submitted, how could artists use their work to inspire change, and what kind of change do you hope to inspire? Here, I'll copy and paste it for you.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that, because I want to answer the Brandon is a good artist part. Okay, have you seen Mr. Abstracto's artwork? That is a super pro there, and so well known. Like should be freaking working for like all the big people. Mm-hmm. Really good, and it's just freaking blows my mind. Like I was working through like trying to ink like his pencil stuff, and I'm just like, how how I hope I get there one day.
He's got a lot of that Scotty Young kind of flair to him,
right? Yeah, and it's so fun, and I love that style, and I hope one day I will be partially as good as Mr. Abstracto. So shows you, buddy. And our next question is, how could artists use their work to inspire change, and what kind of change do you hope to inspire? That is such a good question. Really kind of like looking like, what are like the big like core values that you have? For me, it's like, what can I do to have a freelance thing that has a portion of it that deals with raising money for charity, and like donating like artwork or like a commission portrait and that kind of thing. How can I do that? Because I feel like part of that is just making sure you're getting money to the right places, like the charity Ray Train I'm trying to put together next month for Pride, which I've been asking around. Seems like nobody else on Twitch art has ever done an all LGBTQA Ray Train charity Ray Train for the Trevor project before, but I want to try it. I want to at least try.
Yeah.
So like, and and say, hey, for like the top person, I'll do a pet portrait, or a portrait of you, if you were like the top donator, like things like that. Like that's what I can do to make direct change that makes the world less sucky.
I love that idea.
Yeah, so part of that, but also like the stories that you tell, like living, for me, it's living authentically, being myself and not having to hide, being a kind of a part of the LGBTQA umbrella. and not having those feelings of like shame that kind of can be inherent in marginalized peoples, and like lesser than feelings. So like this is such a good question. What kind of change do I hope to inspire? Great. Let's see here. I think I'm just going to be one of many that will hopefully contribute to a greater narrative of media, in whatever form that is, comics or like digital media or otherwise, about uplifting marginalized peoples and sharing important stories, and things like I didn't even touch on this, but like I find like LGBTQA like history, like that's not particularly taught very well, and I love like doing like small little tiny things like that, and like sharing like stories about the Stonewall riots and how important that was in our history, and how that's just not taught, and doing my part to uplift other peoples, and not just during their months,
Yeah.
So
awesome. I love that. Yeah. Normally I also toss my 2 cents in on these things, but I don't really have much to add. Like, I know I'm not like part of a marginalized group, but like for me, I've had my own experiences that make me very passionate about writing stories that portray everybody as equals is the word that comes to mind, but I don't feel like that truly encapsulates the gravity of what I feel in my heart. Like I truly like no distinction between the things that we put in boxes in real life is the stuff that I want to like portray in my books. As far as that's what I hope my work inspires, is like I want it to be like the people's takeaway of like, oh, we're all just cousins, right? We're all humans. We're all cousins with everyone else. Let's break down like the barriers of whatever it is, whether it's like, oh, they're this religion and I'm a different religion, so we can't get along, or I'm of this social status and they're not, and so we can't be friends, or whatever, right? Like no matter what it is, whatever box you're in, like I want to open those boxes and let everybody out, to play together. This is sort of like the takeaways that I want people. And I feel like those are 2 things, like your goals and my goals, I think align a lot in that respect, right? It's just everyone's a person, and let's just treat each other as people, and give each other like that common dignity, right, of treating each other as we would want to be treated, right.
Yeah.
And as far as what kind of change I hope to inspire, again, it's I just want people to like start being like, yo, let's be friends. Like that's really what I want. If even one person were to like consume some of like the more serious media that I am currently in development to like produce with the Ozrin Tales and the other graphic novels. I'm not going to say like my little 4-panel webcomic is, pushing those themes very strongly, but like the actual like books that I want to produce, that's where like I have like the message that I hope to get across. I don't want to browbeat anybody, but it's one of those like, oh wow, kind of lead by example with through the lens of your characters kind of thing. But yeah, I've had a great time hanging out with you tonight, Eli. Thank you for swinging by the podcast. Let everybody know where they can find you on the internet.
Thank you. It's been a joy and a pleasure, and I appreciate everybody spending their time just listening to me. You can find me on the internet. I am on Patreon, Cascadia Studio, on Instagram and Twitter. You have to put an underscore under between Cascadia and Studio so that I pop up, because there's apparently another one on Twitter who's, anyways, they never post, but I post.
Take their name.
And I am pretty active in the Illustrati server and Fulsham's Discord server. I actually have my own Discord server too. And let's see, where else am I on the internet? I have a YouTube channel, by the way. I'm still trying to get to my first 100 followers or subscribers, I should say, so I can get my name on there. So you can't go youtube.com/Cascadia Studio yet, but I will forward that link so that y'all can do the subscribes. And some doing some videos on there too. And but the most beneficial for me is definitely the Patreon. You're going to find the most updated stuff from me through there, and a whole bunch of stuff that I do not post on social media.
So what are some of your tiers on Patreon, and like what can people expect over there?
So I've got 4 tiers. I've got $3, $5, $11.11, and a $50 tier. Yes. And basically when you subscribe to a tier, you get access to my Patreon only side of my Discord server. And other things I put on Patreon, I have exclusive sketches and first looks of my new works. So all of my comics are up there. You have access to coloring pages I've made, exclusive phone-sized wallpapers of the artwork that I make. I sometimes do Patreon-only polls, and I also do a lot of writing about, my art process and like things that, I think the last one I did was things I wish I knew when I started doing digital illustration. And I did a whole list of all the things and tricks and tips and stuff like I did that. So it's a lot of really cool writing stuff. The upper tiers, you get your own personal postcard from me. And cool. The top tier, you have a percentage off for commissions, and you get an 11x17 print of your choice. So I actually recently did one for someone, and it's 2 wolves and a baby wolf cub, and it's so adorable. So yeah, that's kind of that. I'm always like interested in adding more stuff all the time as things develop. That's kind of the first place I head for updates is there.
Awesome. I gotta ask though, before we sign off, $11.11. How did you come to that specific number?
Because it's fun.
Fair enough. Fair enough. No, I like it. I didn't know if like that number was like significant to you in any way. Or if it was literally just like, oh, it is a fun number, and I definitely think it's eye-catching for sure. I am tempted to go with that one just because it's an odd number, It's very, very fun. But yeah, thank you again, Eli, for being here. Thanks for talking with me tonight. I've had a lot of fun. We are actually it's been a couple of weeks since we put up an episode, so this episode's gonna go up day after tomorrow, actually.
Hey.
So yeah, guys, people listening to this, this one's hot off the presses, coming out. Like I usually like to have a buffer, but I kind of got a little introverted over the last few weeks, and may have dropped the ball on getting people on the show here. But thanks for being our first guest back into the podcast, Eli. Yeah, and everybody, patreon.com/Cascadia Studios, $50 tier. $50.
Oh.
If not 50, then 11.
Yeah, you can become the supreme champion of Cascadia at the $50 tier.
And while you're there, patreon.com/Folsham_art, or just $1, just give me $1, and you can ask cool questions like we had from Mr. Abstracto, aka Brandon, tonight, of asking pretty deep stuff of how can artists use their work to inspire change. That's a great question, and you guys can ask questions that'll be featured here as well, just for $1, just a simple $1. Give Cascadia all your money. Give me 4 quarters. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll catch you next week for another episode of Thought Balloons.